All right, let's get it. Contrary to popular belief, time is an illusion. So today, I want to talk about how calendars are all wrong and how Bible prophecy is actually being confirmed and is right in front of our faces. Now, let me state for the record, I do not consider myself a Bible scholar. I don't consider myself a minister. I don't consider myself a biblical teacher. I'm just a guy who makes observations, and when I find something that's interesting, I dig into it, I do a little research, and I try and share my findings with all of you. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start by reading from the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 25. And it reads, "And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time." And you should read the entire chapter for more context and more clarity about this verse. But the important thing that I'm going to focus on is and think to change times and laws. So I have to apologize. I know this isn't that legible, but I hope that you can bear with me and sort of do the best you can to read this that's on the screen. This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica, um, published in 1992, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the book in front of me, but I believe that's when it was published. But I'm going to read, and this may take a few minutes, but I'm going to read this write-up they have in regards to calendars. Calendar: any system for dividing time over extended periods such as days, months, or years, and arranging such divisions in a in a definite order. A calendric system is essential for regulating the basic affairs of civil life, ergo agricultural, business, and domestic, and for reckoning time for religious observances and scientific purposes. A brief treatment of calendars follows. Let me read that over. A brief treatment of calendar follows. There are several standard units common to virtually every calendric systems. The day is the fundamental unit of computation in any calendar. It is to some extent a natural division of time, but its subdivision into a number of equal intervals, for example 24 hours, is purely artificial. The week, too, is an artificial division of time and cannot be correlated with any astronomical or natural phenomenon except insofar as it is a closed cycle of days. The 7-day week that is now universally used may have been derived from the mystical significance attached to the number 7. Support for this view may perhaps be derived from the use of the names of gods small g and goddesses small g for each of the days of the week. The month is a calendric period derived from lunation, the time interval in which the moon completes a full cycle of its phases. This period, known as the synodic month, consists of 29.53059 days. As the earliest adopted of the longer calendar periods, it had a significance in religious observance. The Old Age Jewish calendar, for instance, is a lunar one, as are the calendric systems still used by Islam and the Christian Church. This year is based on the length of time it takes the Earth to orbit the Sun. There are several ways to measure this period, but the most common is the tropical year, which is the interval between successive passages of the Sun through the vernal equinox. The year thus computed consists of 365.24219 mean solar days, each of which is 24 hours, 3 minutes, 56.55 seconds long. The mean solar day is the average time it takes the Sun to cross the meridian twice. Unfortunately, the tropical year and the synodic month are incommensurable. Sorry, y'all. 12 lunations come to 354.36706 days, almost 11 days less than a tropical year. In addition, neither the tropical year nor the synodic month is evenly divisible by the length of the day. Therefore, to compile or maintain any calendar that keeps in steps with the moon's phases or with the seasons, it is necessary to insert days at appropriate intervals. These extra days are known as intercalations. The most familiar example of an intercalation is the additional day given to February every 4th year, basically leap year. The origin of the calendric system in general use today, the Gregorian calendar, can be traced back to the Roman Republican calendar, which is thought to have been introduced by the 5th king of Rome, Tarquinius Priscus, who lived through 616 through 579 BC. Although somewhat similar in style to the dating system of the ancient Greeks, this calendar was more likely derived from an earlier Roman calendar, a lunar calendric system of 10 months that supposedly was devised around 738 BC by Romulus, traditionally the founder of Rome. The Roman Republican calendar consisted of 12 months with a total of 355 days. Like its motto, it was basically a lunar system short by 10 and 1/4 days of the 365 and a quarter day tropical year. To keep in step with the seasons, a special month was supposed to be intercalated between February 23rd and 24th once every 2 years. But because of negligence and political interference, the intercalations were made irregularly. As a result, by 46 BC, the calendar had become so hopelessly confused that Julius Caesar was forced to initiate a reform of the entire system. Caesar invited the Alexandrian astronomer Sosigenes, I guess that's how you pronounce that, to undertake this task. Sosigenes suggested abandoning the lunar system altogether and replacing it with a tropical year of 365 and a quarter days. Further, to correct the accumulation of previous errors, a total of 90 intercalary days had to be added to 46 BC, meaning that January 1st, 45 BC, occurred in what would have been in the middle of March. Keep that in mind, that's important. To prevent the problem from reoccurring, Sosigenes suggested that an extra day be added to every 4th February. The adoption of such reformatory measures resulted in the establishment of the Julian calendar, which was used for roughly the next 1600 years. During that time, however, the disagreement between the Julian year of 365.25 days and the tropical year of 365.242199 gradually produced significant errors. The discrepancy mounted at the rate of 11 minutes 14 seconds per year until it was a full 10 days in 1545, when the Council of Trent authorized Pope Paul III to take corrective action. No solution was found for many years. In 1572, Pope Gregory III agreed to issue a papal bull drawn up by the Jesuit astronomer Christopher Clavius. 10 years later, when the edict was finally proclaimed, 10 days in October were skipped to bring the calendar back in line. The length of the year was redefined as 365.2422 days, a difference of 0.0078 days per year from the Julian count, which produced a discrepancy between them amounting to 3.12 days every 400 years. Clavius had allowed for such a discrepancy in his suggestion that 3 out of every 4 centennial years, which would ordinarily be leap years, should be regarded as common years instead. This led to the practice that no centennial year could be a leap year unless it was divisible by 400. I find it interesting that 400 keeps being mentioned also. Following this rule, 1700, 1800, and 1900 were common years, but 2000 would be a leap year. These reform measures gave rise to an extremely accurate calendric system. The difference between the Gregorian calendar year and the solar year was less than half a minute. The Gregorian calendar, firmly establishing January 1st as the beginning of its year, was widely referred to as the New Style calendar, with the Julian known as the Old Style calendar. Although the Gregorian calendar is used throughout much of the world today, it was not immediately accepted everywhere. Most of the Roman Catholic states adopted the improved dating system by 1587. Some Protestant states embraced it around the beginning of the 18th century, but a number of others, such as Great Britain and its colonies, did not do so until 1750s. Japan, China, and the Soviet Union, to name only a few, adopted the Gregorian rules much later. A few dating systems besides the Gregorian calendar still remain in use. The Muslim calendar, for example, has been retained by most Arab countries, while the traditional Hindu and Jewish calendars continue to be used for religious purposes. And I'm sorry, guys, I know I stumbled over a few words, and that is a lot of information, but there were some key things mentioned there. Um, Again, basically just saying that they have changed time, and it's confirming biblical prophecy. So here is the beginning of an article from nationalgeographic.com, and you'll see it was published December 22nd, 2021. And I will not torture you all and read this entire article. I'm just going to read these first two paragraphs. In the dark days of winter, a new year begins. But January wasn't always the start of the new year. At the dawn of modern calendar keeping, the winter months went unnamed in the calendars that gave rise to today's most popular system of marking time. Named after Janus, the god of time, transitions, and beginnings, and that's small g, of course, January was an invention of the ancient Romans. Here's the story of the month's wild ride, a tale of astronomical miscalculation, political tweaking, and calendar confusion. And like I said, I'm not going to read the entire article, but here is something that I've noticed over the past few years, and I'm not the only one who noticed this, but January is not the beginning of the year. The true beginning of the year, the natural beginning of the year, is in the spring. It's in March. And I'm not making that distinction or conclusion based on these articles that I've read, even though they are accurate. I'm basing that on nature itself. So if you live in an area where you have a harsh winter, and you get snow and all of that kind of stuff, then it's easier to see that plants come back to life in the spring. That's when the flowers start to bloom. That's when the trees start to regain their leaves. That's when the grass starts to turn back green and starts to grow. Because nature knows when the new year begins. That's the new season. It's not in January where it's cold and dreary and snow on the ground in a lot of cases. That's when animals are still hibernating. Animals in their hibernation in the spring. Even the insects, they come out in the spring, in March, because that is the beginning of a new year. And all of the information that I just presented confirms that. So let's look at this example I have on the screen here, and let's look at some prefixes, right? Now, we know that September is basically what? The ninth month, according to what we know today and the calendar system that we use. September is the ninth month. But if you look on the screen, the prefix sept means seven. And the example that they give, septuplets, 7 babies. Octo, that prefix means 8. And the example that they give is an octopus. 8 arms, legs, whatever you want to call them, 8 tentacles. But think about the octagram or the octagon, whatever it's called. Probably octagon, right? The octagon. It has 8 sides. And I'm sorry, it's been a long time since I've taken geography. But the octagon has 8 sides. So when you think of September, October, they're not the 9th and 10th months. They're really the 7th and 8th months. So if you start at March, if March is the first month, that falls right in line with September and October being the 7th and 8th months. Again, y'all, they know. I'm just saying. They know. Moving on. So I mentioned in one of my previous videos that the Sabbath day is Saturday and not Sunday. So I want to read, and I know, some people don't consider Wikipedia to be a source, but you can, go check their sources at the bottom of this article if you want to, and you can see the title of the article on the screen or the title of the search that I put in. But I'm just going to read some of this from, and I probably won't read all of this. I'll probably just read like the first two about the Sabbath day, starting with Sabbath timing. The Hebrew Shabbat, or Sabbath, the 7th day of the week, is Saturday, but in the Hebrew calendar, a new day begins at sunrise or 72 minutes before and not at midnight. The Shabbat therefore coincides with what is now commonly identified as Friday sunset to Saturday night, when 3 stars are visible in the night sky. The Sabbath continued to be observed on the seventh day in the early Christian church. To this day, the liturgical day continues to be observed in line with the Hebrew reckoning in the church calendars in Eastern Orthodoxy and Oriental Orthodoxy. In the Latin Church, the liturgical day runs from midnight to midnight. However, the celebration of Sundays and of the solemnities began already on the evening of the previous day. In non-liturgical matters, the canon law of the Latin Church defines a day as beginning at midnight. Daniel 7:25 say, changing times and laws. Keeping the Sabbath day is a law. Moving on. Early Christianity. Jewish Christians continued to observe Shabbat, but met together at the end of the day, on a Saturday evening. In the Gospels, the women are described as coming to the empty tomb toward the first day of the Sabbath, although it is often translated on the first day of the week. This is made clear in Acts 27, when Paul continued his message until midnight, and a young man went to sleep and fell out of the window. Christians celebrate on Sunday because it is the day on which Jesus had risen from the dead. Oh, that's not true. Had risen from the dead, and on which the Holy Spirit had come to the apostles. Although Christians meeting for worship on the first day of the week, Sunday for Gentiles, dates back to Acts and is historically mentioned around 115 AD. Constantine's edict was the start of many more Christians observing only Sunday and not the Sabbath. Patristic writings attest that by the 2nd century, it had become commonplace to celebrate the Eucharist in a corporate day of worship on the first day. A church father, Eusebius, who became the bishop of Caesarea Maritima about AD 314, stated that for Christians, the Sabbath had been transferred to Sunday, changing laws and times. In his book, From Sabbath to Sunday, Adventist theologian Samuel Bukiachi, sorry if I'm butchering that, contended that the transition from the Saturday Sabbath to Sunday in the early Christian church was due to pagan and political factors and the decline of standards for the Sabbath day. According to Socrates of Constantinople and Sozomen, most of the early church, excluding Rome and Alexandria, observed the seventh-day Sabbath in Easter. This is from the same page, and I'm not going to read all of this either, but I will read the majority of it. Let me see, where do I want to start? I'm going to start in the middle, actually, with the second and third. The second and third centuries solidified the early church's emphasis upon Sunday worship and its rejection of a Jewish Mosaic law-based observation of the Sabbath and manner of rest. Christian practice of following the Sabbath after the manner of the Hebrews declined, promoting Tertullian to note, to us Sabbaths are strange and unobserved. Even as late as the 4th century, Judaizing was still sometimes a problem within the church, but by this time it was repudiated strongly as heresy. Sunday was another workday in the Roman Empire. On March 7th, 321, however, Roman Emperor Constantine issued a civil decree making Sunday a day of rest from labor, stating, "All judges and city people and the craftsmen shall rest upon the venerable day of the sun." Country people, however, may freely attend to the cultivation of the fields, because it frequently happens that no other days are better adapted for planting the grain in the furrows or the vines in trenches, so that the advantage given by heavenly providence may not for the occasion of a short time perish. The proof is in the pudding, people. And again, these are not my words, and I don't think any Hebrew Israelites wrote any of these articles that I've just read either. So next, I wanna touch on something that this really just aggravates me, right? And there are a few things that aggravate me about the media and pop culture, and how they hijack things and twist them all around, and take something that is spiritual and make it secular. And I may do a video about the rainbow and how they've hijacked that and made it secular. Actually, it represents an abomination. And yeah, I said that. And I may do a video on that and other symbols that have been hijacked by pop culture. But let's read the definition of woke. And this is a fairly new term, right? Within the last probably 8-9 years. I'm gonna start over here on the left at the formal definition, right? Adjective, informal, US, alert to injustice in society, especially racism. But I'm going to move over to the right now and read what's under this picture here. And it says, woke is an English adjective meaning alert to racial prejudice and discrimination that originated in African American vernacular English. That's more important, right? And here's why that last part is very important. Because woke did originate in African American vernacular, but it wasn't about social issues, it wasn't about racial prejudice or discrimination. Woke originated in African American vernacular because it referred to those of us who have been awakened to the truth that black people scattered around the world, not just in America, like a lot of people like to say, but black people scattered throughout the world are the true Israelites. Yes, I believe that 110%, and there is nothing anyone is going to say that's going to change my mind. There's too much evidence, biblically and otherwise, to support that. So I'm going to give my testimony. I'm going to give my confession here, the last couple of minutes of this video, and I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible because this video is already pretty long. At least for my standards, it's pretty long. So I'm thinking back, and I'm thinking it was probably like 2015-ish, 2016, somewhere in that time frame. And that's when I first had the idea that I wanted to write a story about a black superhero, which is on Patreon, by the way, which is what I always promote at the end of my videos. It's only $1.50 per download. That link will be present at the end of the video, and I'll also put it in the description. But so I got the notion that I was going to write a story about a black superhero. This is when the Marvel stuff was like really just taking off and getting really popular. And I was like, well, let's see if we can make a good black hero. And this was before they had introduced Black Panther into the MCU. So this was right around that time frame, right? So I'm writing my story, and then I see the Luke Cage series drop on Netflix. So I'm checking that out and seeing, if their story is going to be similar to the story that I was writing. So I started watching Luke Cage, and at the same time, I'm seeing these articles about Black Panther is going to be introduced in Captain America Civil War. So now I'm like just really getting curious, and I'm doing research on Black Panther. I'm doing research on Luke Cage. I'm trying to find out their origins, their backstories, trying to see what their power structures are. Just trying to make sure that my character is unique and does not resemble those characters in any possible way. You don't want to be accused of plagiarizing or just basically being a copycat. So I was doing a lot of research on those two characters around that time. And I was watching a lot of YouTube videos about those characters. I was, reading comic books. I was, just Googling any type of information I can find on those two characters. But I found something odd kept happening when I would look up Black Panther. And in the recommendations, I kept getting this video in my recommendations about the secret identity of blacks. And some of you may know what video I'm talking about. But it was Brother Yaroshalom, who has since left the faith for whatever reason. But I kept getting this video in my recommendations about the secret identity of blacks. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I try not to go down those rabbit holes, if you will. So I just kept ignoring it. And I'm just like, I don't know what this is. I'm not going to watch it. Like, there is no secret identity of blacks. Like, this is someone basically fishing for views. This is how I'm looking at this, right? So finally one day I'm just like, I'm going to watch this video. I'm curious now. I mean, because it just kept showing up in my feed over and over and over and over again. kept showing up in my recommendation. So like, let me check this out. So I watched the video, and mind you, I grew up Baptist. Went to church my entire life. My father was chairman of the deacon board. I mean, we were always at church. Probably 5 out of the 7 days of the week, we were at church in some form, shape, or capacity, whether it was service, Bible study, prayer meeting, choir rehearsal, doing maintenance jobs around the church. I mean, me and my brothers were always there, right? So I grew up in church, and I'm listening to Brother Yerushalayim's video, and he's like, the blacks are the true Israelites, yada yada yada. And I mean, keep in mind, like most of us, right? We know these things, but we don't pay attention to them, right? Like I've always thought that Jesus was black, always. But I guess it never dawned on me to put two and two together that if Jesus was black, then the Israelites were probably black too, right? It never clicked. So after I finished watching Brother Yerushalayim's video, I'm just like, this dude is nuts. So I go get my Bible. I mean, because he is showing no scripture in his video. So I go get my Bible, and I'm like, the Bible does not say this stuff. So now I watch his video a second time. And I got my Bible here, and I'm going through, and I'm basically reading the scriptures as he's reading them, and my mind is just blown. I'm like, I've been in church all my life, and I've never made this connection. So now I'm watching more of his videos, right? Because I'm still skeptical at this point. Like many of us probably were, right? I mean, when you're indoctrinated all your life to believe one thing, it gets kind of hard to accept the truth, which is where many Christians are today. So I'm watching a lot of his videos. I'm trying to dispel them. I'm trying to debunk his research. Anything that sounds iffy. I'm going through my Bible with a fine tooth and comb, just trying to find anything that's sort of opposite of what he's saying. And the truth is, I couldn't. So then I just, like many of us probably, my story's not unique. I think many of us have had the same journey. So you start watching the camps, and take it for what it's worth with the camps, right? But in the end, and I said this in a previous video, a lot of times they're reading scripture. I say, do I agree with their methods? No. Do I believe with do I rock with everything that they say? No, I don't. But what they're reading out of the Bible, you can't dispute. So I'm watching a lot of camp videos now, and there's a lot of different camps. So you watch them, and you're just like, it's got to be something to this. So now I'm starting to read the Bible in its entirety. I am over 40, and I had never read the entire Bible, right? And this is sort of my I don't want to say an indictment, but this is sort of my indictment of church. Because you'll go to church your entire life and you'll only read what the pastor tells you to read while he's up there giving his sermon, right? I mean, there's so much in the Bible that most Christians just probably are not aware of because I was unaware of some of the things that it says. So I read the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation. And some books I went back and read a second time. And after I did all of that research, and this took me over a year to do, by the way. After I read the entire Bible, like I said, some of it more than once, I came to the conclusion that we are the children of Israel. And like I said, I don't think my story is unique. I think many of us may have had the same type of experience when we came into the truth, when we were awakened by the Holy Spirit, we were awakened by the Most High. It had to be something more than, hey, this is just some fringe movement, like they try and frame it, like this is just some fringe movement. There is no evidence to support, you black guys have no real identity, so you're trying to latch on to someone else's identity, all the stuff that they say. Oh, you're in a cult, get out of that black Hebrew Israelite stuff, it is not real. Really? Really? I say get into it. Go get your Bible. Go try and disprove it. I don't think you'll be able to. And I think a lot of people don't want to do it. One, because, like I said, we've been so indoctrinated. But two, once you see that Sunday church is not what you're supposed to be doing, that the real Sabbath day is on Saturday, then you have to change your whole program around. You have to change your whole demo. And when you get into it and start reading about you're not supposed to really collect tithes and offerings and all that kind of stuff, then you're really stepping on a lot of toes. But that's a whole nother story. So getting back on point here. This is what the true meaning of woke is. And I am woke. Am I socially conscious? Yeah, I am. Do I get upset when I see black people getting murdered at grocery stores and getting killed by police? Yeah, I get upset. But that's not me being woke. That's just me being a black person in America. I mean, who's not upset about that, right? No, woke refers to me and many others awakening to the truth that we are the true Israelites. And I wish more people would start to dispute that term. And I wish the media would stop misusing that term to basically assign it to people just being socially justice. And now it's become a bad word. Now the right uses it to demonize people. But see, me, I try and look at the big picture of everything, and I just think, is that a coincidence? I mean, just think about that. Let that sink in. Is it a coincidence that now woke has become a bad word? To some, anyway. Well, I'm done rambling. I'm going to close out this video. So if you like the way I think, slide over to Patreon, check out some of my original short stories. It's only $1.50 per download. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss out on our future videos. And again, that Patreon link takes you to my Patreon page, and it takes you to my superhero story. It's actually supposed to be a 6-part, probably more than that. I haven't quite finished writing it yet, but I do at least have the first part of the story completed. So if you want to check that out, I mean, go ahead and check it out. It's not let's just say there's a lot of religious, gosh, I shouldn't say religious. There's a lot of biblical undertones to the story. I mean, I try and keep it culturally relevant, but there are some biblical undertones that I think a lot of people will appreciate if they are somewhat knowledgeable of the Bible. To go ahead and check that out, and I think it's enjoyable. Of course, I wrote it, so I have to say that, but I just think it's enjoyable. I mean, the people that I have let read it have all said that it's pretty good. So, like I was saying, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss out on our future videos. Like always, I thank you for your time. Peace.